CJ Peterson, and welcome to The Journey is Real, where we talk to real people with real passions who share a real portion of their heart. Today, my guest is Christy Summers. We're going to be talking about epic battles, overcoming depression and anxiety. Thank you for coming on today, Christy.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, those are two really big areas that are kind of prevalent in today's society that not a lot of people like to talk about. So I really appreciate you coming on and talking about it. Why do you consider this to be your passion?
So I think it's my passion, and I'm pretty sure it's my passion because it is so taboo to talk about. The number of people that are suffering from anxiety and depression is just growing exponentially with all the uncertainty that goes on in the world and our lives, traumatic events, or even just the stress of everyday life. We are always having to be on. Depression and anxiety is a very, very, very real thing in today's world. And it is a passion for me because I've had about a 20-year, very personal relationship with both anxiety and depression. And because of that, and knowing that it is such a taboo topic, I believe that people are right now they're suffering in silence, and that is no way to live. It just exacerbates the problem. And when people are able to understand the ins and outs of anxiety and depression, what kind of, what causes it, what triggers it, how our bodies respond to it, and then there are ways to treat it. When we're making those facts more prevalent in society, it becomes a more accepted thing, and people are no longer having to suffer in silence. They're able to freely talk about it and get the help that they need in order to make it to a better place, both mentally and physically.
Right. On The Journey is Real, we like to knock down those walls. We like to tackle subjects that not a lot of people like to talk about and tackle, and this is definitely one of them. You've obviously been on this journey for a long time. Could you share with the listeners exactly what that looked like for you?
So about, I guess, 20 years ago or so is when I really first started having significant issues. It started out with depression, and I had no idea what was going on with me. I no longer wanted to move. I came from just a background of, I loved life. I loved being around people. And as I was growing up, I had a lot of dreams and a lot of passions. And, around the time, college hit, I just started really declining, and I didn't know why. And when I would tell my friends, I just feel sad, I have heard so many times, well, you just need to snap out of it, get over it. It is, you're just being sad, quit dwelling on things and just move on, right? Well, as I started investigating actually what was wrong with me, and talking to my parents about it, it was something far, far deeper than just a get over it type of situation. And I have to say, there are several different types of anxiety and depression. One is acute, which means there's a certain situation that is causing this, but you are likely to move on, and with a little bit of help, you are likely to regain a sense of normalcy at a later date in time. It may go for 6 months, it may go for a year, but it's acute. The type that I'm going to talk about today is more of a chronic depression and anxiety, where it is something that really grabs a hold of your life holistically. And as I dive a little bit more into my story, I'll tell you, a little bit why mine is considered chronic. So as I was going through trying to figure out what was wrong, my dad was like, hey, it kind of runs in our family. I've been dealing with this for a little while as well. I want to introduce you to my doctor. And he has had, his doctor had depression issues in his family as well. So he had a good understanding of it, which was a huge relief to actually find a medical professional that actually knew what was going on. Because even the doctors 20 years ago were like, we can't help you. It's just, you're sad, get over it.
Well, even just somebody validating the fact that it's real, when your dad said this runs in the family, you're probably like, shoo, okay. So
right. Oh, I'm not crazy, right? Because that's the biggest fear, is people are just going to be like, oh, she's crazy. And all of a sudden you're just a social pariah and nobody knows how to deal with you. All of a sudden they're thinking you're unstable, and anything that humans don't understand, we tend to fear. So by helping people understand the journey that we're on, it kind of softens the blow, and people are able to say, I can relate to that. And especially with this exponential growth that's going on right now, and the ages are younger and younger that are experiencing anxiety and depression, it's becoming more and more prevalent in society that this is something that desperately needs research. We desperately need to talk about it, because there are things that we can do out there to help the population that's afflicted with this disease.
Yeah, social media kind of is a bittersweet thing.
It is.
Sometimes it can help, especially if you're in that zone and you need a little bit of encouragement. You can get it from your friends and from your family
Right.
in social media. However, if you're in the middle of it and you're not sure what to do, and people do say that get over it thing,
Yeah.
it just kicks you even further down. It's like
Well, and I would even say if you're in the throes of depression or anxiety, social media is not necessarily where you want to go, because people love to present these wonderful snapshots of life. And if you're at a low of the low, you're looking at these snapshots, taking it for reality for these people's lives. And why is my life looking so horrible? I'm seeing the full unedited reel of my life, where I'm seeing only the highlight reel of yours, thinking that it's the same as mine. And so that dives deeper into anxiety and depression, because I'm not able to achieve what I think you might have, and which can be a very, very dangerous place to be. So as I had gone to the doctor, we started what I love to say is a Russian roulette concoction of medicines, because after about 5 or 6 years of dealing with some of the side effects of depression, which were for me just not being able to move, having no desire to do anything. Now, being in college at the time, I had friends that would force me to get up and get moving. But as I got older, it just got worse and worse. And 5 or 6 years down the line, we discovered through tests and trials and things like that, we discovered that I chemically do not create enough serotonin. My brain does not produce enough. So from a chronic background, this is something that I will battle with my entire life. It is not going to go away. And realizing that even spurs me forward to find things that work for me and work for my family, and then being able to help people of, hey, there is hope. You don't have to live in despair your entire life. This is a very real thing, but you don't have to live in despair your entire life. And so when I was told, hey, you chemically just don't create enough serotonin, it's very similar to a diabetic. They may need an insulin shot to help their body function as it should. You're going to need a shot of serotonin to have your brain function as it should, because right now you just chemically don't create enough.
But again, that's a validation of the fact that you're not losing your mind. Your body is not creating what it's supposed to be creating, which is probably a bit of a relief.
Validation for me. And I was like, okay, so knowing this, my doctor was able to prescribe me a serotonin. It not only put serotonin into my system, but it helped my brain to create more serotonin, which helped. Cool. Which was nice. And that's a very, very common medicine out there right now. So back years and years ago, it was not as common, but now I hear of so many people being on this particular medicine, both for short-term and long-term, that it's something to definitely work with your doctor on. Now, in all of this, I am no medical doctor, and if you are suffering with anxiety and depression, I do encourage medical help. I can tell you what has worked for me and the places that I've gone, but again, there is the unfortunate side of this is there's no one size fits all. We are all very uniquely made. And within that, we all have very unique experiences, which impact us very, very different ways. So for me, with it being a, chemical offset, it's going to be different for some others. Some may experience the same things, and some may not. So with the discovery of it being a, chemical deficiency that I had, at least I had a step forward. But it still was not widely talked about. The medicines were very, very, very limited as to what they were able to offer. So I just kind of continued to take it. And over the next 10 years, it was really just take it day by day. Like, it is in my nature to be ambitious and to be driven. But there were some days that, especially when I was, I had moved away from Texas, I had gone through a divorce. And at those times, it
Kind of a
just
double whammy.
exacerbates the situation.
Mhm.
And so I was living alone at the time, thousands of miles from my closest friends and family. And I had moved from place to place with job to job. And over that decade time frame, things just got worse and got worse and got worse, because even though I might have been still taking my medicine, there were several factors in my life that I wasn't taking care of myself in a way that needed to be taken care of. Because I will be the first one to say, a medicine it's not a cure-all. It's not a fix everything. It may balance out my chemicals, but it doesn't fix you holistically. And so there are other things that I've learned down the road, which I'll go into, that I believe can help, whether it's acute or chronic anxiety and or depression.
Yeah, and medicine is kind of like a Band-Aid. You
Um,
still got to get in there and kind of dig in and find the core.
yeah, I mean, it
And
helps the
you gotta treat
symptoms.
the whole thing.
Right. It helps the symptoms, but it's really hard to dive in and dig out the root of what's wrong.
Mhm.
And so if it's not an actual chemical issue that you're facing, you have such it's just so much more likely that you're going to be able, if you're willing to do the work, to dive in and find the root of the issue, versus if it is a chemical issue, fix that first, and then you can dive in and find the root, because you'll be of a place to where chemically you're set up to be a little bit more successful, right? So because you're not on, brain's death's doorstep. I mean, that might sound dramatic, but if you are suffering with depression right now, you know that it's just, you feel a step away from just wanting to end everything. And you need to get past that hump before you can actually really dig in and do some serious self-research, hard work on getting you back to where you need to be, to where you can look at life as a beautiful and positive thing again.
Mhm. Definitely.
So for the next 10 years, I just struggled and struggled, and it got worse and worse and worse. And at that point, my anxiety had started going through the roof. Like, I feared everything. My stress and my worry was just absolutely through the roof. I was in a high pressure tech sales job at the time, and I had done tech for 15 years, but it was not something that I loved. It was a job that paid my bills. It enabled me to move around the country, but it was something that I was still so lonely and trying to figure out exactly how to fix what was going on with me, that it came down to, in late 2014, I just knew that I couldn't, my story was going to end. Like, it was just not my time to move forward. I could not fix this. It was way too much. And so in January of 2015, I called my dad and I was like, Dad, I love you so much. I love Mom so much. I just can't do this anymore. I'm so sorry. I love you. And he was like, whoa, whoa. We can do this. We can address this. I want you to come back to Texas. That's where my family was living at the time. And at this time I was in California, and I had moved about 5 states in 10 years, completely on my own, always never knowing anybody. So I had nothing really to leave behind when I was in California. And so um, just by God's grace, I tell you, I was able to have a sabbatical from work. My parents helped me find a outpatient psychiatric facility that I would take classes with them for about 8 weeks. And we really, I was able to get a flight back to their home. They were to take care of me and oversee the entire process. And for 8 weeks in the early of 2015, I had to go through a very in-depth process of healing. And it was the hardest, most difficult journey I have ever had to take. But making it through that 8 weeks absolutely changed my life.
What,
where I,
what did you hold on to through those 8 weeks? Because it sounds like you were down in as far deep as you could get.
I held on to the fact that I didn't want to see my mom cry. I didn't want to disappoint my parents. And just when I thought there was a period to the end of my sentence, it was actually a semicolon, and I got to move on. And God has given me extra years of my life. And now, because of what I've gone through, now is my chance to encourage the listeners out there that there is hope. There absolutely is hope. So going through,
and that they're not alone, and that
oh, absolutely
happens,
not.
and you know, there, like you said, there is hope out there. There is hope. They just
Yeah, and the thing that people need to know is that you are not alone. Depression and anxiety is run rampant.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, even though people don't want to talk about it, the majority of people out there are dealing with it to some degree. And they may not want to look weak. They may not want to be vulnerable. But if you're willing to be vulnerable, you will find so many people that are just like you, that are balancing, life versus this mental illness, and how do we fix it? And there is hope. There are techniques that you can implement in your everyday life. There are medications that you can use that will help you along the way, but don't be reliant 100% on the medication. That will not fix you. You have to do some deep self-discovery in order to get to the next step, to get past that point of destruction, internal destruction, to where there can be hope. So I don't want to give anybody some false assumption that there is some miracle pill out there. There is not. There just isn't. But there is hope that if you're willing to do the work and be true to yourself, and that you will heal. You will heal, and you will be at a point to where you can empower others and help them heal as well. But it is very, very important that you are able to focus on your own self-care, because depression and anxiety, it's very real. It's very painful. And it is something that can be very destructive if you are not handling it in a manner of hope and of forward progress.
Okay. So you've taken us through your darkest point in your journey. What are you doing now to stay away from that darkness?
Right. So I've made some very significant changes in my life as of 2015. So coming back out of that 8-week program, it was still hard. It was terrifying to leave my family because they were my safety net. They were my blanket. So coming back to California to be all on my own was really, really terrifying. But there are a couple of things that I learned when I was in the program that have been immensely helpful. In the program, we pursued something called cognitive behavioral therapy, which worked for me. There are many, many forms of psychological therapies that some work better for others. I was fortunate enough to find that cognitive behavioral therapy works for me. And basically, the premise of that is to change your pattern of thinking and change your pattern of behavior. So with me, I had this, what I can only say is this demon in my mind who broke me down, who made me think of these horrible, horrible things that I would never say to anybody, right? Like I would never tell my best friend or people that I love what a failure they are and how horrible they are and they're worth nothing and your life has no meaning. I would never tell them that.
But you were telling yourself that.
But I'm telling myself these horrible, horrible things. But the thing is, it's like, I do love myself and I do want to do well for myself. But I guess because I'm seeing that unedited reel of rawness in my life, why am I so incapable of loving myself as I would love others? Right? Because if I'm not able to love myself, that hinders my ability to love and accept others where they are. So with the idea of cognitive behavioral therapy, it really was changing my thought process of identifying that negative thought and saying, no, you're not real. That thought is not real. So how do we change it? And for every negative thought, what are 2 or 3 positive thoughts about myself? And, because one of my most common thoughts is you are worthless and you have nothing to offer people. And I would have to stop and say, you know what? That's a lie. I know that's a lie. These are the things I have to offer. I have love. I love people and I love to accept them where they're at for who they are. That alone is offering something to somebody. And that alone establishes that I am worthy to also be loved.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what people need to realize, because worthiness is something that is a big trigger for depression. I would also, with anxiety, I would worry all the time. I would worry about my sales numbers. I would worry about my purpose in life. I would worry about, just anything ridiculous that would come up would be a huge source of stress and a huge source of worry. And so I would have to actually identify that and say, stop. Okay, it's not as big as we think it is. These are the steps that I can take. But just to get to that point of recognizing that negative self-talk and actively stopping it is a hard thing. I don't want to sound like that's just well, just stop your negative thinking. No, it takes control over you, and you have to practice it, and you have to learn how to stop that negative thinking. So that's where the cognitive behavioral therapy really came in. One of the things, there's a couple of techniques that I learned specific to anxiety. One of the things that was most helpful to me is when I am anxious, I have a very, very real physical reaction. My heart is pounding, my mind is going crazy, I get very short of breath. I mean, straight up panic attack happens, start bawling my eyes out, cannot control things. So it's a very, very physical reaction. And the thing that has helped me most is what is considered an act of mindfulness, to where I find myself in a very, put myself in a very quiet and calm environment, whether it's the front seat of my car, whether it's, hiding in the bathroom, wherever you need to go, where it's just you, to take some deep breaths. And I started, because all of my thoughts are so scattered and all over the place, I started thinking of, okay, I need something very specific to focus on. So as I would inhale, take, 5-6 seconds to inhale. And as I would exhale, I would physically tap my forehead as I exhaled. And it was very, very real. That physical feeling of that one point on my forehead was all I was focused on. And then I would exhale, inhale again. And then I would move that point to right under my nose, and then right on my chin, and then right to my sternum. Just very calm, very targeted focus. And if that wasn't enough, I would do it again, breathing in slowly, doing my taps as I would exhale. And that would help my mind calm and focus into something that now I can actually pay attention to rational thinking and figure out, okay, is this something that I can address right now? Is this something that is really worth all of the attention that I'm giving it? But I would have to calm myself physically. And then from that point, I could take a 10 to 15 minute guided meditation. So I've used an app called Headspace. I know that there's a lot of different apps out there that present you with a guided meditation. If you're not comfortable with guided meditation, I listen to some peaceful music, and I would picture myself flying or floating, or just inhale and exhale of images that cause me peace, right? So I love nature. I love huge trees. I love greenery. And so I would picture myself walking down a wooded path, or sitting in a field, just soaking up the sun and breathing. And that holistically would cause my anxiety to really decrease quite a bit. But it is an active effort to get to that point of just breathing in and out versus responding immediately to a physical reaction.
Okay, we have about 5 minutes left.
Sure.
There's a couple things I'll touch on if you can quickly do so. One of them is a book that you're writing.
Yes.
If you wouldn't mind sharing for a few minutes on that. And another is, I know that there are other things that you do, such as running and what we call the circus. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you can kind of chunk that into about 5 minutes.
Sure, no problem. So for me, some of the things that I really needed to do was find something that I love and something that I needed to invest in. And it happened, I stumbled across circus performing. I started out with pole fitness. I've now expanded to aerial straps, trapeze. Circus has been my community and it's been my saving grace and has been something that is super, super healing to me. So if you like to move, maybe dancing is for you. If you like to write, writing is for you. Just being able to express yourself in some way that is very personal to you and finding a way to be true to yourself. The biggest causes of depression is that we are living up to somebody else's expectation, whether it's cultural, whether it's family, whether it's just something that's not true to us. I was not meant to, I'm way too eccentric to fit into a Southern US box, right? I now live in San Francisco where all the crazies hide out. And those are just my people. And I love it. I have the freedom to be me and they accept me as I am, which is great. Also, a huge thing for depression is what you put into your body, what you consume has a huge impact on how you feel and what you think. Just like you wouldn't put diesel into your sedan because it was going to run really poorly, you're not going to put a whole bunch of garbage into you from like food-like product. You're not going to put that into your body and expect to run well. It is fruits and vegetables and water and getting out and getting sunshine. All of that has just exponential effects on your body. So with all of this and, kind of what I've been talking about, I am in the process of writing a book called Epic Battles.
Mm-hmm.
And
this
basically
ultimately is the epic battle in your life.
Yeah, this is my epic battle.
And it's a continuous battle. It's not something that you just kind of do it. It's continuous.
It is. This is something that I'm very conscious of every day. And the reason I call it epic battles is we all have battles. And some are bigger than others, but epic battles are the ones that have the potential to change your path of life. Mm-hmm. How you choose to fight and where you choose to take it determines your path holistically. It could go this way to the left, it could go to the right, but it is absolutely dependent on how you choose to battle. These are those epic times. So had I chosen not to fight, my life would have ended, my sentence would have ended with the period. But because I reached out for help and because I chose to fight, and every day I choose to fight, my sentence ended with a semicolon and my story gets to go on. And I believe others can too. I believe that there is hope. So in this book of Epic Battles, I will dive a little bit deeper into the story that I'm sharing, but my epic battle is only anxiety and depression. Not that that's a small thing, but there are so many others out there with epic battles related to abuse, addiction, violence. There are so many other battles that can be expounded upon where you have to learn how to fight or not fight. And every single one of us out there has an epic battle that is of value and that you are worth saving and you are worth fighting for and you are worth saving. And I truly believe that this book, I want it to be a guide of how people have gone through their epic battle and the hope that is provided there that yes, you too can take this on and you too can move forward and you're not expected to do it alone and you are not expected to do it in the quiet. That's no way to fight a battle. You have an army of people around you that love you and will support you, but you have to not only do you have to make your battle known, you have to be willing to be at the front of your battle, fighting and telling people how you need help. You need to be able to be real with yourself, saying, this is what I need. Be in tune with yourself so that you can tell others how that they can best help you because they can't guess. They don't know because they're probably going through a battle of their own and they want to be able to help you and they'll stop to help you with an epic battle. But remember, they go through things too, right? And you need to be in a position to where you can help them at a later date and time. And so never make them guess, but truly do the work to understand who you are, what you want out of life, and how you want to live it. That helps you move forward with fighting this epic battle. And I'm not going to hide the fact that it's not easy. It's hard. And but the thing is, it's so worth fighting for, and it is so worth doing. I mean, the idea of fighting can be overwhelming and it can be daunting, but this book, I hope, and it's in the very beginning stages, but this book, I hope, can provide a guide with stories and examples of those who have made it and how we did it. Because if we can do it, you can too.
Great.
And there is hope.
Great. Thank you so much, Christy, for being vulnerable and sharing your heart. When your book comes out, let me know and we can have you back on. We could talk for hours on this because it is so huge of a subject. But we do want to thank you so much for your time and for, like I said, for being vulnerable and for sharing your story with us. And thank you guys for watching The Journey is Real, where we talk to real people with real passions who share a real portion of their heart. I'm CJ Peterson with cjpetersonwrites.com. Until next time.